the correlation of quality with advances in machine technology, mechanization, and processing of coffee is the next session. And our esteemed speaker for this particular session is Mr. Carlos H.J. Brando, Director, P&A Marketing. And as already indicated, he will speak on the correlation of quality. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Carlos Brando. Hearty welcome to you, sir. Yeah, basically a civil engineer, and he has coordinated coffee projects in more than 50 producing countries, ladies and gentlemen, and across 5 continents, including all the main coffee growing areas of Brazil. And before he takes over, please note, he received awards of a lifetime achievement from the African Fine Coffees Association and Agribusiness Personality of the Year from the Campinas Agronomy Institute. So welcome to you, sir. It's all yours.
Thank you very much for your attention. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, coffee friends. I would like to start by thanking Dr. Jagadish and his coffee board team for the invitation to be here and to speak with you today. Congratulations, Dr. Jagadish and team, for hosting the World Coffee Conference in a unique way. Congratulations for promoting this Growers Conclave. Congratulations, dear friend Vanusia Nogueira and ICO team for bringing this event to India. It will be a pleasure to talk to you about correlation of quality with advances in machine technology, mechanization of harvesting, and post-harvesting processing of coffee. But before I start, I have 2 mentions here that I must make. I must thank 2 longtime Indian friends. First, I want to thank Mrs. Sunalini Menon, a continuous source of inspiration on how to associate coffee quality and processing. Second, I want to recognize, acknowledge, and thank Mr. Kirti Kabra, who has represented us in India for over 30 years now. Can you stand, Kirti, for those who do not know you? That's Mr. Kirti Kabra. Well, before I address the subject, let me say a few words about our company, P&A, and its associate companies. We have global presence in different sectors of agribusiness after we started in 1995 with exports of Pinhalense equipment that's today found in 104 countries on the 5 continents. Today, we also export Carmomac roasters and other products. Our core areas of operation are trading and consulting, with emphasis in sustainability and promotion of consumption, something we have already done here in India with Coffee Board in the past. Our group of companies include Qualicafex, exporter of specialty coffee, the GSB2 advertising agency, Exotic Coffee roaster of specialty coffee, and Santana Estate, a producer of specialty coffee that's now diversifying into wine production. I say all this to show to you that we have coffee experience from seed to cup. The list of our past and present clients on the screen includes the private sector, companies like Nestle, Syngenta, Yara, Melita, etc. Institutions like the International Coffee Organization itself, the World Bank, the World Cocoa Foundation, the Colombian Coffee Federation, and of course, Coffees of India. You are our clients, you were our clients. And we also work for governments, cooperatives, and the third sector. Well, I'll be talking to you today about changing paradigms. Paradigms in harvesting and post-harvesting processing. My friends, in order to change paradigms, we have to question what's being done. Changes start with questioning. Keep in mind what Fabricio has just said. Can some of the things that work for Brazil work here, work in Vietnam, work somewhere else? We have to have our minds open. I will raise questions about some of the things being done today and propose paths to change. Why do I say paths to change? Paths because you will have to find your own way. That may be exactly what I now propose, or may be very different. I'm just proposing things for you to think about. You will have to question yourselves if you want to change. Because the biggest challenge to change is in people's minds themselves. We will discuss technology with a concern for the economics of what is proposed. My friends, coffee growers, you are business people, entrepreneurs. That's what Fabricio said. We will talk about quality. But is it quality the only thing that the coffee grower wants to maximize? Or as coffee growers, you want to maximize income and profit? My friends, coffee growers' sustainability starts with income and profit. Growers should therefore produce the qualities that bring them more money, not necessarily only the highest qualities. The highest qualities are very important, but there's market for the others as well. Have you ever thought about that? Well, this is not my first trip to India. I have been to India many times, one of the countries I visit the most in my life. And I must say, to some extent, we broke paradigms here. My many trips to India to visit coffee areas, plantations, wet mills and curing works took me to Karnataka, to Kerala, to Tamil Nadu, to Coorg, you mention it. These trips make me think that the time is now ripe for mechanization and higher technology processing in India and elsewhere outside Brazil. I'm sick and tired in this conference of listening how competitive Brazil is. And the question is, why don't other countries learn some of the things that Brazil are doing and adapt it to their countries? Labor is becoming scarce everywhere, and India is no exception. Labor should make more money. That's why they don't want to work in coffee farms, because not enough money sometimes paid. Small growers must make more money. Planters want to make more money. Change should start with how and what you harvest. The first paradigm to be broken here is that there is no quality without selective picking. My reaction is, pick mixed cherries if it costs you less, and separate them after. Listen, it's already a fact today that with selective picking, 3, 5, 10% unwanted cherries are being harvested. Therefore, the time is ripe to consider other harvesting options to reduce cost. Mind you that with selective picking, as the slide says, a person harvests a volume of V. Assisted harvesting in Colombia with machines that shake the branches of the tree, this volume can increase by 50%. But with stripping, collecting several cherries together in a branch or part of it can increase that volume 3 to 5 times without any investment. Handheld harvesters, mechanical stripping can raise that volume 20 times. And self-propelled mechanical harvesters, the big machines, 500 times. I have been to many coffee plantations in India, and I must say, you have the most beautiful coffee plantations in the world, in my opinion. I have no doubt about this, and I say this in every country that I go. It's not because I'm here. And you may have realized already that I'm not afraid to say what I think. And so wherever I go, I always say this. I know that these plantations are shaded, and that the shade trees are often not in the coffee rows themselves, but between them. And I keep that in mind, that you want to remain with shaded coffee. That's why I'm not suggesting mechanical harvesting outright. What I'm suggesting is manual stripping, which may be a quick and cheap solution without investment in equipment. This can be done in a short run and without interfering with shade trees. This manual stripping, focusing on ripe cherries, may increase the volume harvested at least 2 or 3 times and bring down harvesting costs substantially. Something for you really to think about. Well, the efficiency of hand labor can be increased dramatically by using stripping. Stripping concentrated where ripe cherries are. Covering the soil with plastic or canvas and stripping manually the full branch can bring in 3 to 5 times more coffee than with a selective picking, without the need to buy any equipment. Important, there is also the possibility to strip only the parts of the branch with more ripe cherries, not to affect the flowers. You can do this in 2 or 3 picking rounds. If stripping is mechanical with handheld machines, like the one here, powered by a light single-stroke engine, the volume harvested can be increased by 20 times. 20 times, I'm saying. These machines cost about $400. It's not a fortune. And these machines can be shared by small growers or purchased by service providers. The social impact of these handheld harvesters has been tremendous in coffee areas of Brazil. They increase the income and profit of coffee growers. They also increase the money made by coffee pickers, who bought themselves the harvesters and started to make 3 or 4 times more money. It's a win-win situation. The grower makes more, the labor makes more. I'll leave this machine here at the end of the presentation for those of you who want to see, who want to touch. This is an unused one, just for you to have an idea. Listen, my friends, most obstacles to stripping manually or mechanically, are more imaginary in our heads than real. Steep slopes can be handled, as I will show. Density of planting can be maintained by changing the planting layout to have coffee rows or lines. Manuel Diaz has already talked about that. Flowers and ripe cherries together can be addressed. Are the losses caused by stripping, they're mostly imaginary. Unemployment, there is no labor. Quality will be addressed next. Image, communication. Does quality have to be handpicked or be good in a cup? What is it the consumer consumes? The type of picking or the quality in his or her cup? Of course, stripping will bring the need to change post-harvest processing, and this will be addressed in this presentation. But will this decrease the production of quality coffee because fewer cherries are going to be ripe? Well, why don't you plant more coffee? That's what Brazil did. Well, why not use this lower quality product in the domestic and the instant coffee market? There is market for everything. That's in fact why Robusta production is increasing. Stripping, manual or mechanical, can be done in steep slopes by placing the plastic or the canvas on the coffee trees themselves in the neighboring rows. But terraces can be built in existing coffee areas without removing the coffee trees or shade trees in coffee rows. It can be done with shade coffee. Terraces in existing coffee areas not only facilitate strip harvesting, but enable mechanization of cultivation with equipment. Example, you can use larger sprayers, even small tractors. This is an incremental solution that empowers labor, reduces the need for labor, and decreases the costs of producing coffee. Coffee growing in terraces in Brazilian mountains was considered impossible a couple of years ago. It's now becoming an incremental practice to make mountainous areas more competitive to grow coffee. Terraces built in existing coffee plantations are not really required for manual or mechanical stripping, but they pave the way to use self-powered or tractor-driven larger mechanical harvesters. This is now being experimented in several countries in Central America, even in Africa, and it's done in Australia, and it's done in Hawaii. Well, this picture and the video I'll show next show a tractor-driven harvester for areas without shade. These machines can be used for flat coffee areas, areas with moderate slopes, an area with steep slopes if terraces are built. But these machines cannot be used if coffee is shaded. Let's see the video. You see why this cannot be used for shaded coffee, because it goes over the coffee tree. So it can be complicated with shade, but it's always an alternative for you to keep in mind and for you to see how you can pick 500,000 more coffee than one person doing selective picking. And contrary to what people think, this does not destroy the tree. This does not take all the leaves out and coffee is produced the year after. It does not damage the tree if it's properly done. So it can be a very interesting solution for areas without shade. Well, if shade trees are planted in the coffee rows, this small tractor-driven harvester can be used, even in here, in flat areas, in areas with greater, steeper slopes than for the other type of machines. And this can be used in terraces, in spite of the shade trees, if the shades are aligned with the coffee rows. Let's see this other video. It's one column only, and it goes on one side of the tree. It doesn't have to go over it. So it can be easily used in any plantation. Here, if you have the shade along the trees, the shade along the coffee tree rows. It's a much cheaper machine than the other one. A machine like this will cost probably $10,000 to $20,000. The big machine from the previous video is about $200,000. Here I'm talking about $10,000, $20,000. And this can be owned by a third party that provides the work. And you see it inclines. It can adapt to the slope that you have. Interesting, isn't it? And it can work, and it collects the coffee. You don't even have to extend the canvas. Well, that's it for you to think about. Well, my friends, to me, there is no doubt that more efficient forms of harvesting will bring in unripe cherries. Perhaps not much more than the so-called selective harvesting is bringing today. If it's bringing 3 to 5 to 10, these machines may do the same. But central wet milling compatible with harvesting will be required, as it's already required with not so selective hand harvesting. People who do hand harvesting are using different wet mills today. Harvesting of mixed cherries is already happening everywhere. So it's necessary to separate floaters. It's necessary to separate unripe green and semi-ripe cherries. You should pulp everything, but separately. Ripe cherries, top quality, as it was shown here. Overripe cherries can be very sweet, and when pulped, sell for a very good price. Unripe cherries and semi-ripe cherries can be pulped together for the local market. Why not? The processing options are washed coffees, honey coffees, and natural coffees for both Arabica and Robusta coffees. This picture shows a farm not in Brazil, in Central America, producing all types of coffee. Well, we are now living in what I call a brave new processing world with many types of coffee. Washed, pulped naturals, honeys, washed unripe and overripe. If you separate, you should wash them. Naturals everywhere, and new forms of fermentation, as Manuel talked about. Some of these coffees may be ideal to increase domestic consumption. This variety of coffees is challenging another myth, that country A is a washed coffee producer, that Brazil and Ethiopia are producers of natural coffees. Known for fully washed coffees, Central America today produces a lot of honey coffee. Colombia is producing naturals. Brazil washes more than 5 million bags of coffee per year. And Ethiopia is washing many more coffee, much more coffee all the time. But how are these types of coffee processed? How are naturals, pulped naturals, also called honeys, and washed coffee obtained? Not very complex. Mixed cherries, you see them coming. Ripe, unripe, some are overripe and heavier, are received at a mechanical siphon that does not consume water because water is recycled. The mechanical siphon separates impurities and stones that are discarded, removed. Overripes and partially dry cherries that float come out on one side. Ripe and unripe cherries that sink leave on the other side. These cherries separately can go straight to drying, and naturals are produced. One way to produce good naturals. But ripe, partially ripe, and unripe cherry may go to the green cherry separator. to the unripe cherry separator, and then to the pulper? Well, if parchment with all mucilage is dried, we have pulped naturals or black honey coffee, all mucilage attached. If parchment goes through the mucilage remover and some mucilage is removed, we also have pulped naturals, but red or yellow honey with some mucilage attached. If the mucilage remover takes all the mucilage, then we have washed coffee. Finally, wet or dry fermentation is another option to produce washed coffee. Why should the green cherry separator be located before the pulper? Because this creates the option to select what to pulp. I may want to pulp only ripe cherries for top quality coffees for the specialty coffee. Or I may decide to pulp some unripe cherries as well for less demanding markets, so I can select the quality I want to produce. The green cherry separator can be bypassed if there are no unripe cherries. The overripe and the unripe cherries can be processed the next day in the same pulper. This can be done in plantations, but also by groups of small growers, cooperatives, or traders. What about mucilage removal? Should it be done by fermentation, wet or dry, or mechanically by mucilage removers? Well, fermentation, we know, is the processing step that requires and contaminates the most water. If you do wet fermentation, means high water consumption, high labor requirement, costly fermentation tanks, and many people do not know this, weight loss of 3 to 9%, depending on the length of fermentation and the climate. Finally, control is difficult, especially overnight. Dry fermentation lowers the use of water, but has other disadvantages of fermentation. Mechanical mucilage removal consumes little water and enables continuous process. You don't have to stop it. There is no weight loss, and quality is consistent, and there is full control of the process. In some areas, especially at higher altitudes, fermentation is justified because it develops acidity and other features that would otherwise not be obtained. But in most areas, this may not be the case. Fermentation can also be partial, complemented by mucilage removers, taking advantage of the two systems to some extent. The concept of compact central ecological wet mills is becoming popular for small growers. This implies moving from the small individual pulpers on the left to compact larger machines like the ones in the center, or with a mucilage remover on the right. Let's see an example for a group of 100 or 200 smallholders. On the left, 1 or 200 small pulpers cost from $40,000 to $160,000, depending on whether the pulpers are manual or mechanically motor-driven. One central pulper with immature cherry separator for 100 or 200 growers costs only $10,000 to $15,000, 1/10 of the price. And you can use much more sophisticated, sustainable technology. If you add one central pulper with immature cherry separator and the mucilage remover, for the same number of growers, you pay $15,000 to $21,000. Therefore, investment in central wet milling with latest water-saving technology is 60 to 90% smaller than in separate pulping for each small farmer. This is technology, mechanization, and sustainability, with less water consumed and contaminated. In addition, better quality, consistent coffee is produced. It's not one grower fermenting X hours, the other Y hours, and then bringing the slots together. Smallholders have to work together to gain economies of scale. Also, to access technology to become more productive. Groups of smallholders can together access financing, buy inputs and equipment, sell coffee together. That's what Fabricio was talking about. You can sell coffee together, small growers, to deliver consistent quality in larger volumes to get better prices. And processing together may be a good way to start all this. Ecological milling does not mean ecological machines only, but a complete ecological project. Ecological machines are essential, but the loading and unloading of the machines must be ecological too, with dry hoppers to receive coffee cherries, dry conveyance with elevators and conveyors, and not channels and pipelines with a lot of water. Mechanical siphons are required because they recycle water, and dry fermentation if needed, otherwise mucilage removers. It's common to see today everywhere around the world a latest technology, ecological pulping and demucilaging machines installed in an old existing mill where feeding and unloading of coffee are made with pipes and channels that require a lot of water. Pulp is transported by water. A traditional water-intensive siphon tank is used. In this case, an ecological machine has been bought, but the wet mill is not ecological at all. That's why a project, a layout, the design of wet mills is important. What you see here in this 3D drawing is a mid-size ecological wet mill in a flat area with ecological mechanical siphon, pulper, and mucilage remover. And equally important, dry feed hoppers and dry silos, a mechanical transport of coffee and pulp without water. Although the objective today is to having to use machines without water, reality is the machines with minimum water consumption are still the prevailing case. Because very often growers buy a machine that's zero water, but it starts to break coffee. It starts to mix the pulp. And then he or she adds water. So in practice, the solution, the best solution today is minimum water consumption, compatible with efficient production and desired quality. It doesn't help zero water with damaged coffee. It's better to have central mills because the gains will be larger proportionally in both investment and operation. This is the same central mill I showed in Central America, in El Salvador, that processes natural, pulped natural honey and washed coffee in the same facility. Modern ecological wet milling and drying technology enable economies of scale to be reached, better quality control, and consistent quality of products in order to cater to new consumption trends. This technology is today available for micro lots, for small lots, for mid-sized growers, and large plantations and facilities. The same technology developed for large facilities is used for micro mills. That's the secret, the same technology for all size growers. It is a fact that technology is usually developed for large facilities that have a higher price. This technology is then made available for small and mid-sized coffee producers and processors. This is the 3D drawing of an existing large central wet and drying high-tech ecological mill in a cooperative in Colombia. Same technology, large and small mill. Well, this trickling down of technology, the shrinking of machines to assist the small coffee growers, has also happened with dryers. Divided drum rotary dryers can handle much smaller lots with the same technology. Different small lots can be dried simultaneously to help groups of small growers, mid-sized growers, and the drying of small and micro lots that are so much demanded by the specialty market today. The same small lots can be dried with the small rotary dryers, like this ones installed in Africa, drying top quality parchment coffee. Drying drums have been divided, and their size has also shrunk for specific clients and uses. Example, micro lots. But also, a lot has happened around the drying drums to increase drying efficiency. What am I talking about? Air heated around the chimney is usually lost to the environment. Well, this air can be collected and injected into the overhead loading silos to pre-dry coffee. These overhead silos become pre-dryers with savings in energy and drying time, much more ecological. This may shorten drying time by 10 to 20%, depending on the moisture of incoming product and climate. This is technology, my friends, and the use of digital technology in drying means more quality and lower cost drying. Drying control systems for new and existing dryers with 3 rather than 2 temperature measuring points is the drum, the fan, and the heat exchanger. Not only the fan and the drum, it's 3 checkpoints. This enables better temperature control, energy savings, and simulation of sun drying. You can do in a dryer what you do under the sun without the risk of rain and bad weather and dew. The use of drying curves and profiles is made possible like you do it in a roaster today. And look at the results here. These 3 curves shows what happens without control, with 2 temperature control, and the red one is with 3 temperature control. The one with 3 temperature control is temperature remains closer to the ideal. This is better coffee quality, less fuel used, and shorter drying times. So yes, my friends, you can use digital technology to help you with your current processes. Hulling and grading technology is also shrinking to empower the holder, to assist small, mid-sized traders, and to process micro lots. Micro and mid-sized compact curing works, as you say in India, for cleaning, hulling, polishing, and grading with the same technology of large mills are today available, with capacities as low as 300 kg, 5 bags per hour. These machines can be used by groups of growers, farmers, traders, service providers, as well as large mills, including to produce micro lots. Dry milling and roasting of micro lots is becoming a reality today for groups of growers and mid-sized to large farms. On the left, you have a 3D drawing of small curing works. And more interesting, on the right side, this is in India, on your right-hand side. This is in Tamil Nadu. It's a micro-curing work and a roasting operation, not very far from here, from Bengaluru. So it's here already, and you have to amplify this image. Well, I want to conclude this presentation because I have already talked too much. I want to conclude this presentation. Maybe I have placed too many questions in your minds, but there's some more to come before I finish. I want to conclude this presentation talking about how technology, advances in technology, can not only increase efficiency and lower costs of dry milling, the costs of curing, as you say in India, but it can also help with compliance with new European Union deforestation regulation. We heard a lot about EUDR here, but we have not heard about traceability. My friends, better quality control in dry mills, in curing works, with the use of samplers, and greater efficiency in dry mills with the use of automation can help with the traceability required by the EUDR. It doesn't help to be sustainable, not to deforest, if you cannot show it. The same technology is available for large to micro mills. New high-tech blending technology is available to meet clients' demand, to avoid losses, and again, to comply with new EUDR. The same holds for more precise weighing in electronic scales for bags and big bags. Dust aspiration complements all this, now with a focus on better working conditions. This in itself could be another presentation, but I'll give you a quick glimpse of this new curing technology because of their importance at this moment for EUDR compliance. Pneumatic coffee samplers are monitoring tools or devices for greater efficiency that create the ability to design coffees for different markets, the EU included. Our automation software and hardware is now available for full mills or critical parts of mills, reception and blending to have full traceability. The hardware that goes along with the software includes sensors and controls, computer wiring, etc. And people think that the benefits of automation are less labor. No, that's not the case. The case is control of efficiency and control of quality. These are the biggest benefits rather than labor itself, let alone the facilitation of EUDR compliance. Well, low dust, low noise work environment, but one of the most critical and important technologies for EUDR compliance is automated 100% controllable coffee blending. Coffee blending can be automated and programmable to provide customized solutions that respond to clients' needs and improve quality with the full traceability required by the European Union deforestation regulation. Higher precision weighing and faster shipping with electronic bag scales, electronic big bag scales, and bulk container loads avoid losses and satisfy customers and facilitate traceability. Finally, dust aspiration has become more sophisticated with negative pressure technology. Fans are placed near the filters and aspirate the dust instead of blowing it. I could not finish this presentation in a better way than promoting the sustainability of coffee milling by keeping the working environment clean. Well, my friends, I'll close this presentation with 3 thoughts. First, a confession. When handheld harvest, these were first introduced in Brazil. I was the person who took them from Italy, from olives to Brazil to coffee. Mr. Cabra tried to do the same thing here in India at the same time so many years ago. Today, this accounts for 50% of coffee harvested in Brazil, 0% in India. This is my first thought for you. The second thought, I'm going to quote the CEO of the National Coffee Federation in Colombia, Germán Bajamón, who is here, and he quoted Steve Jobs yesterday, saying, people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do it. Maybe there were more people in Brazil than in other countries who were crazy enough to think that they could change the world. And they did. Now it's up for you to think about this. It's your duty to reflect and to think out of the box. My friends, if you're interested to learn more about my crazy thoughts, send us an email and you'll receive our confidential newsletter every month. And it's even available in Hindi. Thank you very much for your attention, and sorry for provoking you.
Thank you very much, sir. Kindly come back for a moment, yeah. Well, it was indeed a real eye-opener for all of us. So before we leave Mr. Carlos Brando, I would request Dr. Babu Reddy, Deputy Director, Market Research of Coffee Board, to kindly come over and felicitate the esteemed personality. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think all of you must clap in unison and give a huge round of applause for Mr. Carlos H.J. Brando, Director, P&A Marketing. Thank you very